Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of Lake Vostok, the sealed Antarctic lake that hasn't seen light in 15 million years. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction. Not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. 4 kilometers beneath the Antarctic ice sheet, sealed from the world for 15 million years, lies Lake Vostok, a liquid freshwater lake the size of Lake Ontario. No sunlight has touched its surface since the Miocene epoch, when our ancestors were still apes. Russian scientists drilled through the ice for 20 years to reach it, navigating political collapses, equipment failures, and international controversy about contaminating a pristine ecosystem. When they finally broke through in February 2012, the pressurized water rushed up the borehole and refroze instantly, providing a pristine sample of the lake itself. When researchers analyzed what came back, they found bacterial DNA unlike anything previously cataloged, sequences so novel that the vast majority could not be matched to any known organism on Earth. Is Lake Vostok home to an isolated biosphere that has been evolving in complete darkness for millions of years? And if life can thrive there, what does that mean for the ice-covered oceans of Europa and Enceladus? This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the landscape of modern documented mysteries, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Human perception is fallible. This is not an insult, it is neuroscience. The brain does not passively record reality, it actively constructs it, filling gaps with expectation, inferring causes from insufficient data, and storing memories that are reshaped by subsequent experience. Eyewitness testimony is the weakest form of courtroom evidence, precisely because what people see and what actually happened frequently diverge. Sound can cause visual hallucinations. Infrasound at specific frequencies can produce feelings of dread, the sensation of a presence, and even visual disturbances. Sleep deprivation, stress, and hypoxia can generate vivid experiences indistinguishable from waking reality. All of this is relevant when evaluating modern mysteries. Many apparently anomalous experiences have prosaic explanations rooted in human neurology, temporal lobe activity, hypnagogic hallucinations, shared social expectation shaping perception. A willingness to consider these explanations is not dismissiveness, it is intellectual hygiene. The brain is capable of generating extraordinarily convincing experiences that have no external cause, and yet, the perceptual explanation has its limits. It cannot account for physical evidence, radiation burns, landing traces, electromagnetic interference on electronic equipment, or anomalous readings on calibrated instruments. When multiple independent witnesses, separated by distance, report identical details, mass hallucination strains credulity. When physical measurements corroborate subjective experience, the neurological explanation is insufficient. These are the cases that demand another look. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns, in science, demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding Lake Vostok, the sealed Antarctic lake that hasn't seen light in 15 million years, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Lake Vostok is the largest of more than 400 subglacial lakes identified beneath the Antarctic ice sheet. It stretches 250 kilometers in length and 50 kilometers in width, reaches depths of 400 meters, and lies beneath 4 kilometers of glacial ice. The lake is kept liquid despite surface temperatures of -55 degrees Celsius by geothermal heat from the Earth's interior and by the insulating pressure of the ice above it. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen. Instruments malfunction. Researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered Russian drilling at Vostok Station began in the 1970s as part of a project to extract ice cores documenting Earth's ancient climate. By the 1990s, scientists realized the drill was approaching a liquid body of water. International debate over contamination protocols halted progress repeatedly. The final push to reach the lake's surface took place under extraordinary logistical conditions at one of the most remote and coldest places on Earth. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. On 5 February 2012, the Russian drill at Vostok Station penetrated the lake's surface at a depth of 769 meters. The pressure differential caused lake water to rush up the borehole and freeze almost immediately, creating a plug of refrozen lake water that could be recovered and analyzed without direct pumping. This accidental sampling mechanism provided the first material directly from Lake Vostok's liquid body for biological and chemical study. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, the water temperature within Lake Vostok is approximately -3 degrees Celsius, kept liquid by the pressure of the overlying ice, approximately 355 atmospheres at the lake's surface. The combination of extreme pressure, permanent darkness, near-freezing temperatures, and an estimated isolation period of 15 to 25 million years makes the lake one of the most extreme environments in which life has ever been sought on Earth. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of Sergei Bulat of the St. Petersburg Nuclear Physics Institute led the Russian biological analysis team that examined the refrozen borehole water in 2013. His team identified bacterial DNA in the samples, including sequences with less than 86% similarity to any known organism, a threshold that typically indicates a new genus-level discovery. The findings were published but immediately contested by other researchers who raised the possibility of contamination from drilling fluids used during the 20-year operation. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. Ice cores extracted from above Lake Vostok during the drilling process contain a remarkable diversity of microbial DNA from the ice-water interface, where ancient lake water has been incorporated into the freezing ice above. Over 500 unique genetic sequences have been identified in these accretion ice cores, the majority of which cannot be matched to known organisms. Geothermal heat from the subsurface has been confirmed by temperature profile measurements as the primary energy source sustaining any potential ecosystem. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain Lake Vostok, the sealed Antarctic lake that hasn't seen light in 15 million years. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Lake Vostok harbors a unique extremophile microbial ecosystem that has been evolving in complete isolation for millions of years, developing metabolic pathways and genetic structures unlike anything found elsewhere on Earth. This hypothesis is supported by Bulat's DNA findings and by the confirmed presence of diverse microbial sequences in the accretion ice. The contamination question prevents definitive confirmation, but has not invalidated the finding, as some sequences remain unexplained by drilling fluids. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that Lake Vostok is sterile. The pressures, temperatures, and chemical conditions are simply too extreme to support any form of life. And the DNA sequences found represent contamination from the drilling operation rather than genuine indigenous organisms. This position was argued by several Western research teams who reviewed the Russian data and was the dominant skeptical response to the 2013 publication. It has been partially undermined by the sheer diversity and novelty of sequences found. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that Lake Vostok's potential ecosystem serves as the closest terrestrial analog to the subsurface oceans of Europa and Enceladus, where similar conditions of liquid water, darkness, and geothermal energy may sustain life. This astrobiological framing, championed by NASA researchers, has driven significant international interest in subglacial lake exploration as a proxy for testing whether life can persist in the ice-covered ocean environments of the outer solar system. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding Lake Vostok, the sealed Antarctic lake that hasn't seen light in 15 million years, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes Sergei Bulat's 2013 analysis in the journal Advances in Polar Science identified bacterial DNA sequences in refrozen borehole water with less than 86% similarity to any catalogued organism. While the contamination debate remains unresolved, the novelty of the sequences, many falling outside any known phylum, cannot be fully explained by the known microbial communities associated with the drilling fluids used at Vostok Station during the 20-year operation. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented geothermal heat flux measurements through the ice sheet above Lake Vostok confirm an active heat source from the Earth's interior sufficient to maintain liquid water and potentially support chemolithotrophic organisms that derive energy from mineral reactions rather than sunlight. This mechanism is well established in deep-sea hydrothermal vent ecosystems and provides a plausible energy basis for a Vostok biosphere independent of any solar input. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed ice cores from the accretion ice zone immediately above the lake's surface have yielded over 500 unique genetic sequences from multiple independent research teams, including American and British groups working on separate core sections. The diversity and distribution of these sequences across different depths and locations within the accretion ice is difficult to explain purely by contamination, as drilling fluid contamination would be expected to produce a more uniform and limited microbial signature. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding Lake Vostok, the sealed Antarctic lake that hasn't seen light in 15 million years. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Russia, the United States, and the United Kingdom are all actively pursuing access to Antarctic subglacial lakes, with the British Beamish Project reaching Lake Ellsworth and the American Wizard Project successfully accessing Lake Whillans in 2013. Contamination protocols remain the central scientific controversy. Woolpit's DNA findings have been published, but not universally accepted as contamination-free. Full biological characterization of Lake Vostok requires new clean-access robotic technology that does not yet exist at operational scale. The astrobiological implications for Europa and Enceladus continue to drive international funding and scientific interest, making subglacial lake research one of the most consequential fields in planetary science. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of Lake Vostok, the sealed Antarctic lake that hasn't seen light in 15 million years. From the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Lake Vostok ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.